all right, you're going to make a poor choice. There are going to be failures in your life. Everybody. It hasn't happened to them, but it will at some
Mhm.
point, right? How are they going to handle it, right? Are they going to allow it to consume them, take over their life? Or are they going to make conscious choices on how to move forward?
Welcome to Comeback with Erica Cobb, where everyone is deserving of the comeback they're willing to earn. Well, when she was named the fastest woman in the world, she had in me a fan. But now that she's been transparent with her comeback story and testimony, she has in me a stan. My
Yeah.
guest today is a 5-time Olympic medalist who broke records and made history and headlines. And now she's joining me to share her incredible comeback story. Please welcome Marion Jones. Hey, Marion.
Hi, Erica. I'm so happy to be chatting with you today. This journey of mine has been one for the books, right? And now that I've made the decision to kind of come back on the scene and share my story, but more importantly, Erica, share this message of hope, because that's really what I want people to get out of my story. Maybe they'll be inspired, maybe they'll be motivated, but I think this story that everybody um, has in some way is coming back from something.
Mhm.
If you're an adult, something has happened in your world, whether it's your choosing, whether it's something that's just happened to you, and people can argue all they want about the ins and outs of my story, but nobody can argue, Erica, with this idea that wow, she hit the heights of success that very few, if any, people can relate to. But like us all, she's hit some failures in her life, and that's an understatement. And so in that, I think I relate to most people, and most people can relate to me. And what I share now, though, Erica, and why I'm so excited to talk with you today, is this idea that you don't have to stay stuck.
Right.
It is a choice many times. And hopefully, by us sharing today, people are inspired and motivated that, their setback can be just the stepping stones to their biggest comeback in life.
Well, you are literally preaching to the choir because
Okay.
my audience here understands, regardless of what you're going through, and the genesis of Comeback with Erica Cobb was that I went through divorce, unemployment, bankruptcy, and I had to become honest about
Mhm.
who I was, where I was, and that was something that really it made me not only just a stronger person, but you talk about unmasking yourself. You talk about the idea that failure isn't forever. And so many of us get stuck in the failure. And then what do we always say? The cover up is worse than the crime type thing, you know?
Yeah.
And that's true when it comes to, the things that we're doing. It's also true when it comes to how we want to be perceived. So I have to ask you because you spent a decade out of the spotlight. How are you doing now that you've made the decision to be public with your story?
I'm doing fantastic, Erica. I like to talk about seasons in our lives, right? That there are seasons in our childhood, and as you progress, there are seasons. Well, for me, there was seasons of a lot of fame and fortune and fast, like the three F's, right?
Mhm.
I graduated from college, and those three things like hit me, and couldn't catch my breath. And that is a season of my life. There's a season of a lot of success. There's also a season of a lot of failure and a lot of soul searching. There was a season of consequence, as we all know, and I'm sure we'll touch on briefly. Um, but I'm in a season now in my life whereby things are very clear, Erica, very clear in that I have taken the time, which I think, Erica, is very needed
Mhm.
in any comeback story. I've taken the time to assess where I was, why I was there, why I made certain choices, and And for me, that's a hard thing to do, as you
Mhm.
know, right? To sit with yourself and just yourself and say, psh, psh, like, okay, like, let's get our act together, for lack of a better word right now. Why I made certain choices, how then now can I move on from that? And so that is what I did in that 10-year hiatus. Although, I made the choice to step away from the spotlight, not just for that, but because I had a family. I had three young kids at the
Mhm.
time, and I wanted to be fully present for them and with them. And I knew that my voice couldn't be contained, right? Like I don't want to get it twisted, Erica. I don't want to get it twisted in that I chose to step away because I was afraid of the spotlight, or afraid of being confronted, or arguing my point. No, it was none of that, right? I made certain decisions, and I knew that my voice and my story and my testimony was going to be told. It was
Yeah.
going to be told by me. I wasn't going to allow anybody to continue to tell my story for me, or to continue to rewrite my narrative. Like, my voice was going to be heard when I decided that it was going to be heard.
Yeah.
And so the decision was not a difficult one to say, all right, now's the time. My kids are older. My kids understand the story. They also understand the need for what I've been parenting and teaching them for years, Erica. And that is this, all right, you're going to make a poor choice. There are going to be failures in your life. Everybody. It hasn't happened to them, but it will at some
Mhm.
point, right? How are they going to handle it, right? Are they going to allow it to consume them, take over their life? Or are they going to make conscious choices on how to move forward? And
Mhm.
so this act of me coming out for, in a lot of different ways,
Yeah.
was very purposeful. It wasn't by chance. It wasn't by accident. It was none of that. It was me saying, okay, the time is now. Whether the world is ready for it, or me or not, the time is now, because I've chosen for the time to be now.
I really appreciate you saying that it was your choice and that you needed to define your own narrative because your story has been told by so many people. And it is important to hear from you because only you have lived it. I
Mm-hmm.
also think that it's very important at this moment that the timing was almost like lightning in a bottle because so many people are feeling this push against cancel culture and the idea that there is no room and place for redemption. And I think for extreme measure or extreme things, okay, we'll give you that. Yes, I understand that not everything requires a redemption story. But when it comes to someone making a mistake that really that isn't, I'm going to say it like this. When you make a mistake and you've taken ownership over it and you have contrition, I feel like there is room and there needs to be room in society for people to make a comeback. And the comeback doesn't always look the way
The
that it
same.
did
Mm-hmm.
coming back to what you were before. And I think that you are such a model example in real time for people who need to hear this story. So I won't go too deep into the story, but I just want to kind of get people up to speed in case they were living in a rock somewhere. And some of my viewers or listeners are on the younger side. So
Yeah.
during this time, I think about your story in terms of where I was. And this was happening when I was in high school, in college. You were the fastest woman in the world and the first woman to win 5 track and field medals in a single Olympics. So looking back, how do you feel about those accomplishments today?
Erica, I'm extremely proud that I set such a huge goal for myself at the age of 9 years old. I'm originally, to give folks a little bit of background, like you said, there might be some people that are younger or we're living under a rock, but I'm originally, I'll make this story fairly quick, but I was 9 years old. I was from Los Angeles. The Olympic Games came to Los Angeles. They'll be back there in 4 years. But at the age of 9, the Olympic Games came there, and that was my first experience, exposure to the Olympic experience. Fell in love with it. Sat in front of my television that summer and sat with tears and awe and excitement to see the athletes cross the line and to see them react to the crowd and all that. Knew at that moment, Erica, that this was what I wanted to experience.
Yeah.
I did not know specifically that it was going to be in the sport of track and field, but I knew whatever it was, that was going to be me in my season.
Mm-hmm.
And began competing and training. And it was easy to, I know there are a lot of young people that have that dream, especially now after the games are completed, they're done. They want to be an Olympic champion, Olympian. But my goals were very realistic in that from an early age, it was identified that I had a unique gift,
Mm-hmm.
a unique physical gift. I was fast. I was strong. I always joke. I like to joke, Erica, and say that when your older brother, who's 5 years older than you, right? When he is choosing you, Erica, to be on his little neighborhood teams, can
Mm-hmm.
you imagine? Do you have any siblings, Erica? Do
Yes,
you have?
I'm one
Okay,
of four, so I know this is a big deal.
this is a big deal, right? Everybody can relate to this. When your older brother is choosing you to be on his sports teams, you know that they're gifted. Anyways, it just success came my way really fast. At the age of 15, I made my first Olympic team. Decided to pursue the sport of basketball in college, in addition to the sport of track and field. Graduated, had a lot of success. Decided, you know what, it was my time.
Mm-hmm.
I read written on my chalkboard at the age of 9 that I wanted to be an Olympic champion, and this was my moment. And so I started to compete. I graduated from the University of North Carolina in 1997, and I started training. And success, Erica, when I tell you it came my way very fast, that is an understatement. Within 10 weeks, I was the U.S. national champion in the 100 and 200 and long jump. And a few weeks after that, became world champion at the age of uh, don't hold me to this, I think around 21, 22 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point was on a path of success. And flippantly told a reporter in Switzerland in 1998 that, oh, yeah, I was going to go to Sydney. He asked me, what are your Olympic goals? Well, I'm 22 years old. My goals are to go to Sydney and to win. Well, I run the 100. I want to win that. I run the 200. I want to, and I'm going to win that. I long jump, happened to do that. Jackie Joyner Kersee was my idol.
Yeah.
Wanted to do that, and I was successful at it. I was going to win that. And of course, I was going to be on both relays. What does that equal? 5 events, Erica.
Mm-hmm.
So I told him that I was going to Sydney and that I was going to win 5 gold medals at the Sydney Olympics. Well, again, I'm young. I flippantly say this, it catches fire, right? And it spreads, and that becomes the story going into the games in Sydney. And everything was as planned, or so I thought, right? I was training hard. I was winning competitions. I was on the cover of every magazine that you can imagine. I was making a lot of money, and Sydney comes around and success, right? Not ultimate success. I didn't wind up winning 5 gold. I won 5 Olympic medals, 3 gold and 2 bronze, right? And so the story, right, that's not the story that people want to hear,
Right.
unfortunately, right? And I'll get to that. The story that people wants to hear is that during that time, I was surrounding myself with people whom I trusted,
Mm-hmm.
Erica. Again, I go back to the fact that everybody has been 20 and 21 and 20 years old. And if you haven't surrounded yourself with people who ultimately, didn't have your best interest at heart, at some point you will.
Yeah.
And that was my reality. And people asked me this story about drug-free sport, drugs in sport, and then and now and every time in between, I believe in a drug-free sport, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my story then turns south very quickly when I realized a number of years later that the people that I had surrounded myself weren't trustful, right?
Right.
And to kind of wrap the story, because as you said, Erica, it's been told a lot, but I have no problem kind of just touching on certain things. In 2007, I was invited by federal investigators to show up in San Francisco and to share any knowledge that I have of performance enhancing drugs in the sport of track and field.
Right.
Well, I agreed to it easily because I was confident that I had nothing to do with that, right?
And
I
you
had
were
surrounded
testing
myself with this
negative as
team.
well.
I was testing negative, and people say, well, how do you not know? Well, I mean, every week I was probably the most tested athlete in the world. Met with federal investigators in 2007. They showed me a substance that I immediately recognized, Erica, was something that I had been given even prior to the games, right? Something that I was told was something else,
Mm.
right? But there were no red flags, Erica. Like I didn't test positive, like it wasn't like that at all. And so when they showed me this substance and I realized, Erica, that it was something that I had been taking, something that I had been given, like within 2 minutes, less than that, I thought to myself, oh boy, right?
Mhm.
Like if I'm to admit to these folks, right, that what I am seeing is something that I have taken, like my entire reputation, everything that I've worked for would be out the window and I would lose everything. Right. And so in that split second, Erica, I made the choice to not tell the truth.
Mhm.
Right. Which is the issue here. People think, oh, she went away for 6 months because she took this. That's not accurate. Like if
Right.
people like do their research, my issue is that I had signed what's called, Erica, a Queen for a Day letter with federal investigators. And if you don't know what that is, people listening, that's if you sign this letter, in essence, what you're saying, if you tell the truth, you can and will not be prosecuted,
Right.
right? And so because I chose to not tell the truth, that is why I eventually was sentenced to 6 months and medals were stripped and everything that came along with that. Um, and if I could go back, would I make different choices? I mean, even further than not telling the truth, being more mindful about the people that I surround myself with. Absolutely. Right.
Mhm.
Not pulling away from the people in my life who would tell it to me straight.
Right.
My family, certain people at that time where, I'm just come out of teenage life, right? Like doing my own thing. I'm on this, I call it, Erica, a wave of success that sometimes takes you so far out, Erica, like it's hard to see the shore. It's
Yeah.
hard to see the people that will say, you know what, Erica, honey, let's come back, sit down right here. Let me talk to you, right? But you get
Yeah.
so far out there, you lose that voice, and that's certainly what happened to me. And hard consequences were my reality,
Yeah.
and I was forced at that time to, distance myself from sport, something that I was passionate about. But, people are always surprised when I tell them, Erica, it was an incredible blessing too, though, right? Because a lot of times in life, um, you don't get that time, you don't get that quiet space to do all the reflecting that I shared with you earlier, right? Because of life. Like
Right.
I literally, and this is, it's certainly God working. I literally was like still slowed down for 6 months, right? I wasn't around certain people in my life anymore. And all I had was time. All I had was time and prayers and thoughts and writing and journal and a realization, right, that I was and am a descendant of an incredible family, grandparents, mother who had such big dreams for their kids that I was not going to allow this to be my defining story, Erica. Had I disappointed so many people? Absolutely, yes. But that didn't need to be my period. That didn't need to be the end of my story.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for telling us all of that. I know you've spoken about this ad nauseum, and and I do appreciate the context. There are a few things I just want to kind of, I call them comeback gems, and it's
Mhm.
when a testimony teacher comes on to my platform and says something that I'm like, did you hear that for the people in the back? Because you talked about being in a body of water, not being able to see the shore. And when you get past a break, what else is out there but sharks?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, if they haven't gone through, as you said, if they haven't gone through that season where you are inundated with opportunists, people who are looking at you just because you are who you are and they see all the great things that you are doing or are going to do, then you
Or
are
will do for them.
out to
Yes.
sea alone. And
Yeah.
I think that a lot of us, I'm 43 years old, and until recently, I finally feel like I have my true circle. And you have to weed out people, and people show you who they are. And what they're really there for. And the people who are still there for you when you've fallen, when you've had your failure, are the people who you might have pushed away because it was the inconvenient truth. Those are the people who are really going to ride with you through the storm, through the rain, all the things. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you talking about that. You in 2008, you were leading up to the story, but you were convicted of lying about the use of performance enhancing drugs, which you stated. You were stripped of your Olympic medals and served 6 months in prison. You served 45 days in solitary confinement, which is, it seems like a massive overcorrection. How did your mother help you get through that difficult time in your life?
Well, that has been and will be part of the story that is for me the hardest to share and to relive, because even at that time we talk about like the people in your life who you know will always be there, right? The people in the life, especially, and it's interesting that you brought this up, Erica, because I go back to this idea: how many teenagers, how many 20, 21 year olds like want to hear like what their mother is telling them, like want to hear that, that truth. And so because this was that season of my life, I my mom was there. My mom was there through every step, but it was hard for me to be in that space knowing that I let her down,
Mm,
right? And knowing that all of the dreams, I mean, my mom is from a small third world country. And mom came up to this country with these huge dreams for her kids, right? And knowing that I had made such bad choices and poor decisions, it was hard to confront and be around that, knowing even though she was supportive and she was loving,
mm,
I know that my decisions hurt.
yeah,
And I couldn't yet deal with all of that, right? And I needed to compartmentalize certain things, and my time away was needed for me, right? As selfish as it might seem, it's needed in every comeback story. Like you need to be selfish to figure out how to manage and how to function and how to succeed and how to push forward, right? Like that takes energy, and sometimes it's the energy that you don't have for anybody else,
right.
right? You can't pour into anybody else. You can't check on anybody else. You need to literally check on yourself, make sure that you are okay, make sure that you have your ducks in a row, as they like to say, Erica, and that you have a plan, right? And that is what I developed, Erica, during that time away, during that 10-year break from the world. I was reinventing and I was reframing. And I was speaking with somebody recently, Erica, and they said something like, I was conjuring, right? Like I was conjuring up some greatness,
Yeah,
right? I was conjuring up my comeback story. And that takes time,
yeah,
right? And many people don't have the patience for it, right? So they will let's give you examples. They will find another quick relationship,
hmm,
right? If their part of their comeback story was getting out of a traumatic relationship. Oh, they're trying to be patient. They're trying to be patient 1 year though. I found the person.
yeah, yeah,
Well, maybe you just need to hold off a little bit. Are you good? Right? Like, are you really good? So certain things like that, or jumping back into a career that you got away from that you're not truly passionate about,
Yeah.
right? And you realize all these things with time, with age, with experience. And so to just touch on again what we initially talked about, like, am I good? Am I happy? Am I in a good place? No doubt, right? No doubt. Are there moments still, Erica, where I'm like, oh, Marion, life. But at the end of the day, I can close my eyes now, um, happy, um, uh, confident that the choices that I make now and that I made within the last decade are those that are not only going to benefit me and my family, but impact the lives of people, which is like ultimately what I hope everybody has on their to do checklist
Yes.
in their life. Like, how can we, with your platform, with my platform, truly impact the lives of people positively? Right? It's what I share, Erica. People ask me, well, what could I tell those athletes at the Olympic Games, those younger athletes at the Olympic Games? And what I share is that I hope that they are not only really embracing their Olympic experience,
Mhm.
right? Like just loving every moment of it. I don't think that I truly embraced it while I was in it. I
Right.
hope that they're doing that. But I also hope that they and the people that they have surrounded themselves with, Erica, are allowing them to establish a platform that even once they are done competing, right? That they are more than just the athlete that ran fast from here to there.
Yeah.
Because although that will impact a lot of people right now, the long term impact is not solid enough, right?
Right.
Now that they have a platform right now, people want to hear from them. Why not start to establish, right, the seeds, start to plant the seeds that in 5 years, in 10 years, or ultimately their legacy is not just going to be, okay, you won an Olympic gold medal, high five, right? That's something incredible. But truly, what did you do that helped people live better? Like, what is it? So that is my hope for people. That's what I do now. That's why now I can sleep fine, right?
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, but you got to have you have to have these interviews and you have to talk about the hard stuff. It's not always easy, but it is easier knowing that I know that somebody, Erica, out there is hearing this story, all right, and are in a place where they don't know what or if their tomorrow is even going to happen. And
Right.
maybe, Erica, they can hear your story or they can hear my story and they can say, you know what? Geez, right? If they can get through what they've been through and they're where they are now, I can do this. I can do this. And if one person says that, it's all good, right? It's worth it, right?
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I like to say that the way that I can be transparent with my testimony in real time, and there have been, the comeback never stops. It's not
Yeah.
like this season happened and then I had a comeback and then the rest of my life was like great, like perfect. And I think that's important for people to understand. But each time you have a setback season, you're constantly accumulating these tools that are preparing you so that your next setback season doesn't feel like life is going to end, because in your mental arsenal, you know that you have overcome major hurdles and this is just another hurdle that you'll have to overcome. You're listening to Comeback with Erica Cobb. I am speaking with the ultimate comeback testimony teacher, Marion Jones. Let's talk about your new path, because you have embarked on a new path as a performance coach. What does this entail?
Oh, everything you said is so true about these seasons of setbacks, right? And I like how you put that together, Erica. But it's this idea that um, it's everlasting. It's never ending, right? You set little goals along the way, and it's what I currently teach my clients in that you set little goals on the way. Of course, you have your long-term goal. You want to know what it's going to look like, where you're going to get to, but along the way, you have these little comeback celebrations, whatever they look like. It could be your fitness comeback celebration. It could be your career comeback celebration, whatever it is. And there are going to be times that are going to knock you down, right? And you're going to like have just be surprised by something. But again, you've learned the little tools, you have experience, You have something that you've learned that's going to help propel you forward. And so I'm so excited to be able to share now, like where I'm at right now, but more importantly, Erica, like what does next week look like? What does next year look like? So I have partnered with this amazing company called Driven Inc. I had the good fortune of meeting the the founder of Driven Inc. It's a New York Times best-selling author by the name of Suzanne Evans, and we partnered up to help entrepreneurs or people who are really needing a comeback in their business, right? So these are entrepreneurs who have lost it all, some of them, or looking for something to come back from. And I teach the tools, and we teach the tools how to balance mind, body, and heart. In that part of this comeback in business is developing a certain type of discipline. And most people have the hardest time when it comes to discipline of the body, right? Discipline of eating, discipline of physical fitness. Well, I obviously have an extensive background in fitness, and over the past decade have really tightened up and like improved my knowledge. I've been a trainer for now over a decade. And so what I do is not only do I coach mindset, how do we do this? What are the steps? But I also incorporate the fitness component that so many people don't want to do, don't know how to do, or afraid to do. And we couple all of that. I train people, not only I train people in this idea of mindset, how do you do it? But then I physically train people also several times a week. I have clients whom are part of the program. We call it our comeback club.
Yeah.
Where you people sign up, and it is all of it. You get me a few times a week in training in regards to fitness. We sit down and we get on one-on-one calls. You sit down with Suzanne Evans and learn the details, the steps on how to make it happen on a daily basis. And it has been amazing. I am so passionate about it. It is so real and it's so authentic that, again, I go back to people can't relate to how an Olympian does X, Y, and Z on a track. But everybody, Erica, can understand, right? The need to come back from something. And I don't think there's a person out there, as you so eloquently shared, there's not another person out there that can teach that like I can. So I'm just so excited about where I'm at with the business point of it, and the fact that now I get to like use this platform again. I get to, meet with Robin on Good Morning America and Nightline and share my story with people whom I've known for many years and have been fair and just in all of it. There are poor decisions. People were disappointed, but allow me to share my story in a way that is true and authentic and give me a platform now, not only to just leave the interview there, right? But folks like you and Robin and others that I choose to speak with these days, right? Give me an opportunity to share what is most important. And that it's not the story, although parts of it are important for context, but allow me to share, all right, now this is what's next. Join me for the ride, right? Join me for the ride. Or people whom comment and are stuck in that past or stuck in that negative space. Erica, I like to share with them, you are exactly the type of person that I'm coaching these days, right? Why don't you sign up for the program and let me help you pull yourself out of the past, right? Because that's the first problem, getting yourself unstuck.
Right, right. Well, first of all, I mean, just to be in the same talk about who you choose to share your story with and spend time with, I am just beyond honored.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I followed you, Erica, and you are true and you are authentic, right? And that is who I gravitate towards. Now, people in my village, in my community that are about lifting others up. I get it, girlfriend. We all have a platform. We all, want to put ourselves out there, but ultimately, I surround myself with people who, at the end of the day, they want to make others better. And I like how you're doing it, Erica. So that's the reason I was like, heck yeah, let's sit and chat.
Well, I thank you. Thank you. You're
Yeah.
gonna make me emotional. So I'm gonna share this because I've been honest about my recent comeback journey that I'm on. But I was on Instagram and I had just found out earlier that day that I miscarried um the first time, and I saw your post, and I was having a really hard time getting out of bed that day. And you were out and you were like, saying something to the effect of like, I'm going to do this because I don't want to do it, but it's going to make me feel better. And I just, first of all, it was just happenstance. Like you just popped up. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's Marion Jones. And I was thinking about like, because when I said, as life was lifing for you, I was in high school and then I was in college. And I remember having very visceral reactions to seeing you and your story. And all the visceral reactions were just, I was just so heartbroken for you. I I always felt like it was I think that everyone needs to be accountable, but the way that you were made an example of, I really took that so personally because I feel like some of us, especially people of color, especially women of color, are often made an example of. And it just hurt me so much for you. And when I saw you, I felt like it was a sign from the universe to get me up and moving because I did not want to move. So you saying that to me means so much to me because I honestly, I just felt this instant connection, and I was so excited to see you in how you are today. It gave me so much hope and gratitude. And I thought one day I am going to get her on my podcast, and here you are. And I just, so thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you so
and
much.
that thank you for sharing that, Erica. And that is why um on the days that and I do, right? Like I don't want it to sound or seem as if I have it all figured out.
Right.
Okay. I am a work in progress. And I share that so people still know that there are tough days. There are tough moments where I wake up and I say to myself, huh, I sure don't want to have to talk about that again today. Um, but when I hear folks share similar stories to what you just shared, it makes it worth it, right? Because there are more than just an Erica Cobb on that particular day hearing what I'm sharing on social media. There are a lot of people who are sharing like thanks, Marion. Like I don't even care about the X's and O's of what you did. The fact that you're being true and authentic and you're putting yourself out there, and it can't be easy, and it's not, especially because this is like I still have a family, I still have like so many things that I'm juggling, but I know like this is ultimately like I have a group in our driven team. It's called the Legend, and whereby people who want more one-on-one type coaching, um, fitness coaching, and mentality comeback specific mindset calls, and we call ourselves the Legends, right? And ultimately, um, I want like my legacy to be one that is all about her story didn't end when the world thought that it would, right?
Mm.
It's what I share, it's what I teach. And just one person saying, Marion, that day or that week or your story in general helped me to get from this point here. And I'm grateful. Oh, it's everything to me, Erica. So
I
thank
love it.
you for sharing that.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. So let's get into because this summer was obviously the Olympics, and
Yeah.
you did say that you were going through Olympic withdrawal. So what were some of the highlights for you from the Olympics and in Paris? And I know that you've already said that you were excited to watch the Olympics.
Yeah, I'm excited. There were some years in this comeback story that were harder to watch, I'll be honest. And that's understandable, I think. But I'm at a space now whereby my kids are athletes and we enjoy watching it. And now I can relate my Olympic experience to their excitement, and that makes it really enjoyable. But of course, like I am a fan of Simone Biles. I've watched her story. I have even, I guess, so much respect for her, besides the fact that she's the greatest of all time in her respective sport. But to be a female athlete of color in these days and times, in and of itself, is hard. And then to say, you know what? I am not all okay. And I'm going to step back, and the world won't be happy because they want what they want, and they could care less about how we're doing on the inside. But she makes the decision to step away for however long, receives so much negative press and negative feedback for doing what is best for her and
Mhm.
her family. And then not only doing that, and then coming back from it and just inspiring and winning gold here in Paris. So that's my huge Paris moment. But of course, I loved watching all of the track and field athletes. A number of them train in the Austin area and that I know. And so I was cheering for them. The women's basketball team. I'm a huge like basketball fan. I watching them in the last game pull out the victory. And there's so many other little things. Of course, watching Snoop was one of the biggest um, uh, surprise moments of joy for
Yeah.
me and so many people. I saw something the other day on social media which tickled me, and I'll share it, Erica. Somebody said something. Oh, Shakari can be banned from competing in Tokyo for whatever she was banned for, but then they're going to invite Snoop, right, to be the poster child of Paris, and it's okay. Like, this world is crazy, right?
It
But
is.
um, I just sat back and just smiled. He brought an element of just authenticity. Like Snoop is Snoop, right?
Mhm.
Like he's gonna have his swag, he's gonna talk how he wants to talk, and it's just made for so much fun, right? And just the fact that going back to LA, I sure hope that they keep him part of the program
Yes.
because I really think that he added an element to it that was awesome. That was awesome. So that was my Olympic experience. There were some sports, as I've shared on social media, that
Yes.
yeah, I shouldn't even really call it a sport, and some people didn't like my commentary on the idea of breakdancing. And there are a number of other sports, Erica, that definitely should not be included in the Olympics. That was one of them, but it was just a fun time. And I also shared like what's next. What's next? It's hard to have been so like overwhelmed with greatness watching the
Mhm.
games, and then now it just ends. Like they shouldn't do that to us, right? The fact that we still have the WNBA, in season, and we'll get to watch that, but it's a hard stop to not have all these athletes now invading our living rooms for the next 4 years.
Well, let's get into the WNBA since you brought it up because
Yeah,
it's attracting a lot of attention. You played basketball at North Carolina. I see your is was that your jersey?
yeah, that's one of our jerseys. They when you are an All American at the University of North Carolina, they retire your jersey and they hang it up. That's just yeah, that's that. But more importantly, next to it is my degree.
Yeah.
That's more important than that big jersey. But yeah,
Which
um,
you did receive.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, not only did you play at North Carolina, you also, a part of your comeback journey was with the WNBA. So,
Yeah.
how are you feeling about all the attention that the WNBA specifically is receiving? And do you think that women's sports will ever be celebrated to the degree that men's sports historically have been?
Well, let me answer your first question. I am thrilled to see where the WNBA in particular has come, women's sport in general, the US women's national soccer team, and this whole argument for years about equal pay. And although it's not truly equal yet, you start to see the gap lessening, which is great. In all of it, Erica, I am still very cautious to celebrate how far we've come because of how far still we need to go. Right? Like I when I say I'm cautious about it, it's because sometimes when you celebrate something so much, you lose sight of the fact that there's still so much work to be done. And also I am cautious of doing it because when you celebrate what's happening now, you sometimes also lose sight of all of those who truly paved the way, right? Like all of the athletes. I am not necessarily going to say myself because I was part of the 1% in sport that was paid very well and
Mhm.
right and that was highlighted and spotlighted. And so I'm cautious to include myself. But yeah, I mean, there were so many people even before me who struggled, right? Whose skill level was elite and they didn't get the attention. So in all of it, I celebrate where we are. But in that same breath, Erica, I say, but there's so much still yet to do,
Yeah.
right? The fact that we are selling out stadiums, and I'm saying to myself, well, why wouldn't we, right? Like we are skilled, right? Physically, can we all dunk a basketball? No, right? But that doesn't require a lot of skill.
Yeah.
It's one of those type of things. And so I'm excited about where we are in women's sport in general, where it's headed, as long as we continue to pour into our young girls and our skill development and not compare it, right, to the men's game, right?
Mhm.
The sport of basketball is basketball, yes, but we celebrate the fact that women in sport can do amazing things that men can't do and men can do. But it's this idea that we all can be great at something with skill development and with support.
Yeah.
We need support at the grassroots level for this to continue to excel and go in the direction that where we want it to go.
When you're speaking about this, my little sister Ebony, who I've had on the pod, she would be on a lot. And I just think about her. She's 7 years younger than me, and her love of sports and female athletes. Long before she constantly will remind us, but I was into this before anybody else was into this. And it's like, it made me think of course, it's such a blessing and a well deserved. I'm not saying blessing as in it's, heaven sent literally, but like it's a positive thing that we are speaking about female athletes and women's sports in the way that we're speaking about it now. I was discussing on my daytime talk show, when we were having our women's sports coming up and how are they related to men? And I'm like, we have done more women athlete, women's sports stories in the past 2 seasons than we have in the whole 7 year, existence of this show. So I do feel like there is a shift that's happening. And the idea is that as opposed to people just talking about how it needs to get better on the consumer fan end, that we
Mhm.
are investing as much as we're talking about it. So I
Right.
do appreciate what you're saying.
It's interesting because we talk about it, right? And we celebrate that. But we also, as you shared, it needs to reflect in their salary. It needs to reflect in pouring into grassroots clubs and organizations of these young girls. It just can't be, oh, look, it's like the fad. It needs to become the norm. which is nice, right? Like now you're seeing female commentators and you don't really blink anymore,
Yeah.
right? When you turn on Sunday morning football or wherever and they're talking about football and these other sports and you see like female journalists and commentators. And that is a sign of success when it doesn't like catch your eye anymore. That you
Yeah.
don't say to yourself, oh, wait, there's a female referee on the football field, right?
Right.
When it becomes the norm, our daughters, they don't know any different. Right? So we need to have representation for it to continue to progress.
Well, first of all, let's get to the representation part. But you are listening to Come Back with Erica Cobb. We have gone through the comeback journey with the ultimate testimony teacher, Marion Jones. So earlier this year, Marion, I had Karamo Brown on my show, and I asked him about his coming out story, and he very swiftly corrected me and said, it's not coming out. I let people in. So
Uh,
I want to ask you, what led to you letting people in, that you were a part of the LGBTQ community?
that is so well said how he said that, right? Because um, when I made the decision to open up my world again to everybody, it was a bit of a surprise that people would be interested in this facet of my world. And it's only because for however long now, over a decade, it hasn't been a thing. It's just who I am. My family has known. And when I realized that it was going to be a thing, I sat, I prayed about it, I talked about it with my partner and the family, and I realized that it truly can and could help people, right? Um, uh, People who, again, are stuck, people who, live with this idea that they can't be their true and authentic selves, which is a hard place to be. Erica has spent a good amount of my life, my adult life, in that place, and I wouldn't want that for anybody. And so the decision to share, to let people in, was one that wasn't difficult for me. It seemed more difficult to cover it up for decades, for lots of reasons. You know, to be an elite female athlete of color, in the 90s and in the early 2000s, whereby uh, consumers and companies want this straight, have it all together, uh, confident athlete with no hiccups in their armor, right? I quickly understood that what they were looking for.
Yeah.
And, made choices again that I wasn't going to live my true and authentic self. Well, you get to a point in life where at least you hope that you understand really what's most important, right? And that's being who you are, right? Representing that to everybody in your world. And if they like it, great. And if they don't, great, right? Like they don't have to live with me. um,
Right.
and it has been the amount of support and in my community has been so wonderfully overwhelming. And yeah, it was a decision that I am happy with
Yeah.
to share, and that there's no need to wonder or to guess. Right, I'm happy. I've found like my person, and things are just so good.
Yeah.
And I am in it's this point where I'm almost 50, Erica. It's all about finding peace.
Yeah.
It's about peace and surrounding yourself with people who help to pour into you and bring that about in your world. And I'm not about disrupting that peace anymore, right? And so I'm very careful with whom I choose to talk with, and whom I choose to surround myself with. And I'm just so like, I feel blessed, right, to have gotten to this point in my world, and I've found someone that I understands me, that I understand, that I can be myself with, and it is a true blessing.
You know, I love hearing you talk about not or being your authentic self and letting people in. And I'm circling back to something that you said earlier about essentially patterns. You know, we get stuck in these patterns when you were talking about, you know, whether you're going back to a job that you know doesn't serve you anymore, or you're jumping into a relationship and you're knowing that essentially you might be repeating a pattern from a past relationship. And when I see you talk about your current relationship and your life now, letting people in, there's this unbridled joy on your face.
Mm.
And it also begs the question or makes me think about when we aren't living in our authenticity and we are in the body of water with the sharks, how far from self we actually can get because we aren't able to live our authentic truth. And I just think about the idea of you at almost 50 letting people in on your truth and how liberating that must be, not just in terms of saying, yes, I'm a part of the LGBTQ community, but how liberating it has to be in alignment with everything else in your life and how those things happen because of authenticity.
And also, I agree with all of that, Erica. And also, like knowing that, and I'm a believer, Erica. I believe that all of us have a plan. Like there's a plan set out for all of us, right? And sometimes parts of the plan we don't agree with, right? And so we go this way or we go that way. But it's the idea that you are who you are, right? And you decide, right, to not be whom you want to be at different points in your life, but you just get to a point where it's not about all the other stuff. It's about being happy in your skin, right? And it takes time sometimes, right? Like I do not think, and Adele's my partner, we talk about it all the time. I do not think that at the age of 20, I could really understand and be able to truly live my authentic self in the world that I was in at that time,
Mm.
right? How I was running, where I was running, who I was partnered with, like all that type of stuff, right? And it's taken years and decades and different relationships and different just all of that to be where I'm at, to be in a space to love her and for her to be in a space to love me. Like it's taken time. Like we
Mm.
joke that like I don't know if like it's 30 years ago, right? That I I wouldn't taken her out to dinner or vice versa,
Yeah,
right? We were just in different times in our life, and I'm just so good, right? Like you know how we say like you good, you good. Well, I would hope that people when they hear this, Erica, they say, you know what, she's good, she's
I love
good.
this. I love this. Marion Jones, I could speak to you forever, but I know that's not an option. So before we wrap, I just want to ask you if there's anything you'd like to share with my comeback community.
Well, Erica, I would just reiterate this whole idea that if you're listening, right, and there are people, particularly who are listening to you, Erica, who turn this on for a word of hope, right? Who are struggling with something or have struggled with something and are unsure on what the next steps can be for their comeback. I would hope that something that I've shared, and maybe it's this idea that their setback can be part of their incredible comeback,
Mhm.
or that their failure does not have to last their entire life, Erica. It's not forever. Okay? It happens to everybody. It can be for a short season. For some people, it's a little bit longer, but it doesn't have to last forever. And that ultimately, all of us can get unstuck and move forward and find their true comeback. I believe that, and I hope that whatever we talked about today is exactly what people needed to hear, like what you needed to hear on that day, Erica, when
I
you heard my
did.
story.
I did. I did. And I needed to hear all of this. What is on the horizon for you?
Oh, more of the wonderful save, Erica. I love training people. I love sharing my story. You're going to hear my story and new and different elements of it that I haven't even realized people need to hear, but it's probably of significance and can inspire people. But I'm going to continue like not listening to the haters, right? And knowing that my true purpose is to impact the masses,
Mm.
right? Like as many people as I can. People are going to get tired of hearing my story, and I don't care. I am okay with it because, again, if some little girl in some little community, right, are fighting their demons and whatever their demons look like, and they're like, I just need a way out, right? And hearing my story helps in any way, it's all worth it. So I'm going to continue to do exactly what I'm doing, Erica.
I love that. I love that. I was listening to an interview with you, and you talked about how one of your parents was told that essentially someone in your family lineage was going to be
Oh,
extraordinary, was going to be all of these things. And I would just say that there's clearly been a calling on your life. That calling
yeah.
hasn't stopped. And I so appreciate you spending a little bit of time with us on Come Back with Erica Cobb.
It's been wonderful, Erica. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marion Jones. And Comeback Kids, you can unleash your inner fire by starting your comeback season with Marion's Elite Performance Coaching by visiting marionjones.com. Thank you.
Thank you.